in the world of executive leadership, pressure isn't new, but something has shifted since 2020. The game has changed. In this episode of Unfazed Under Fire, Anatoly and I go straight to the heart of what's unraveling, not just in the world, but inside the executive experience. We talk about why the current strategies of enhancing executive performance and burnout are not working and what it really takes to upgrade your leadership capacity during this time. Here's a preview of what you'll hear. With all these burnout solutions that are out there, we're simply moving the chairs around the Titanic, not hoping the boat won't sink. In the meantime, executives are dropping off like flies. 2,200 CEOs left their seats last year, record-breaking. 70% of executives report feeling the edges of this. It's mind-numbing when you think about it. I want to say, folks, it's not the environment. It's the one that's meeting the environment. I'm going to slow down here a little bit. You said a lot in that, so I want to unpack this a little bit. At the core of what you're saying is we can't will ourselves way out of burnout. We can't think of strategies or use the thinking intellect to think our way into more resiliency and the ability to meet the day. There's something in the physical experience that if we create the right conditions, knows how to resolve that. If you're sensing something's off, if the old playbook isn't working and the pressure feels like it's rewriting your nervous system, this episode is for you. We're not offering another productivity hack. We're offering a reset, one that doesn't just help you survive the storm, but lead from within, get back to thriving in your role. Given that, enjoy the full episode, take it in, and if something stirs in you, feel free to reach out. Let's get started. Welcome to Unfazed Under Fire. This is David Utts, and this is time to stop pretending. It isn't business as usual out there. The world isn't just shifting, it seems to be unraveling, and executives are doing more than ever under pressure that most can't even see, and it's taking a toll. So today we're not going to pull any punches, and we're going to talk about the real deal. I'm joined, luckily today, by my co-host Anatoly Yakorev, who's resolved his technical issues. Glad to have you back. And as always, this is a real-time conversation we want to ground in what we're seeing and sensing that leaders are dealing with on the front lines. This episode picks up thematically after the sovereignty series we just completed. We're going to be speaking directly and honestly about the disorientation, the exhaustion, and loss of meaning many are navigating right now, and what it actually takes to reclaim our vitality, purpose, and power in the midst of all of that. Now, while we're speaking candidly about the current reality, the aim is not to be Debbie Downers. These times are a call to activate a greater level of leadership, but we have to be candid both with what's happening and what it takes to step into that higher level of leadership that we're all being called to do. And the world is craving that leadership, and all of us have to find a way to answer that call, or at least some of us. And we strongly feel, Anatoly and I, that executives are the ones to help get us through these times, and that we want to support those executives who are ready to step into that higher order of leadership to do so eloquently and powerfully. So before we jump in, I have to say, personally, more and more the world feels pretty surreal, Anatoly. I mean, some days I say, what the fuck is going on, to be quite honest? And truth seems to be a moving target. Institutions we once trusted are cracking. Half the population is in war with the other half over competing ideologies. Burnout is no longer an exception for executives. It's becoming the baseline. So what do you see? How would you describe with what's going on in the world right now? And what most concerns you about that?
You have summed it up pretty well, because what we're having is like all institutions, anything that we used to have and enjoy in a civilizational way, all of that seems to be crumbling, and nobody's talking about it. People behave business as usual. Now, let's take a step back from this and look at how business people can do anything in that environment. So they look out the window, they see too much uncertainty. They have no control over it. The only thing they can focus on is that task at hand. Now, but the problem with that is, How do you know that what you're doing inside of the company with all your strategies and everything, how that's going to like really fly, because the world is on fire and there's so much happening that no matter how advanced you could be and smart, you may still not see lots of things coming. Okay, but let's take a step back
Yes.
from the intellectual component. Let's look at the fact that how much the physical body can take. Let's not just talk about like intellectual capacity and resilience and other things, because we're beyond it. Technically, how much your body can handle working against the clock and working on so many things at the same time, and you have no control over your body. Your body starts gradually giving in. And there are no solutions available right now to mitigate risks of burnout. I mean, people come up with all sorts of nonsense, right? But it doesn't help. It doesn't work at a level that's needed for business executives.
I actually see that as well. We see a lot of people doing good research on burnout. Like, what's burnout look like? What are the symptoms? What is the executives dealing with? And other people that are, it's happening all throughout the organization. It's just not affecting executives. Everybody's dealing with it. And also then, okay, it's this typical kind of consulting lens. We back out, we look at what's happening, we look at the effect, and then we look around the environment, all around the executive. We don't look inside the executive. We look all around. Oh, let's change the policy in that you shouldn't return emails after 7:00 at night, or weekends are sacred, or wellness programs pop up. There's been a 25% increase in wellness spending to take care of people. And we say all the time that burnout results in a wellness issue, but it is not a wellness issue. And you point to something that that it's the body. So the body is giving signals, like I'm getting stomach cramps, I'm getting tension headaches, I'm feeling that rock in my shoulders, and that grows throughout the day, like feels like shoulder pads at the end of the day. I'm waking up at 3 a.m. in the morning and I can't get back to sleep. So those are symptoms of it. It isn't the environment, right? The environment has changed. The pressures have changed. It's that the body is not keeping up with that. So looking at that very situation, what about the body has not been able to adjust? Why all of a sudden? Because pre-2020, executives faced high pressure days. They confronted crisis. They dealt with ups and downs in the business. It wasn't as evident then as it is now. So what has changed? Is it that the body hasn't changed to keep up? When you talk about the shift in the body that needs to meet the day, what are you talking about?
Technically speaking, what we're having today is the fact that this is ongoing levels of stress. They don't go down. It's not a spike like before 2020, where people could handle that. Okay. They knew I've got this preparation before IPO. I have to soldier on and through that, and then things will get easier. But these days, what people realize, it's a never-ending saga of battling the stress at this work environment. And there is absolutely no flat moments where people could really get their bearings and maybe, relax a bit. It's just ongoing onslaught. Now, why is it to deal with? Because the first element of that is emotional exhaustion. You work with a lot of people who just don't know the level of stress that you're dealing with is always underpinned by the level of emotional fatigue. It's not mental fatigue, which is different. Mental fatigue, you can work on a task and then take some time off and then come back to the task and finish it off. But the emotional fatigue is relentless. It's just like you cannot really deal with it because it's outside your body. It's all the people overworked around you. and you are reading to their level of stress, and that compounds to your level of stress. So, number 2 is cortisol levels. Never-ending levels of cortisol, something you can't handle. You can't dump those levels of cortisol and just move on. So that keeps undermining your performance, keeps undermining your well-being. And that is going to push you in a situation where you become cynical, emotionally detached from people, and your performance falters because you just don't see any value of delivering that. Your body reacts that way. So your body trips you up. So therefore, when you start looking at that, you cannot use your willpower and say, look, I need to handle this. Your body just steps in and says, no, this is it. We're drawing this line in the sand. You can't handle that. You have no resources. You have no authority over me as your physical body. So how about you keel over and vegetate for half a year and then come back to the drawing board?
Yeah. Well, it sounds to me as that when cortisol levels are so high all the time, you're always in survival mode. And when you're in survival mode, the blood bleeds out of your executive function and you're back into like, I'm into getting out of this situation. And then there seems to be different protection mechanisms that come online when you're in that high survival state. Like, I've got to just check out. Our body's survival mechanisms are very intricate, right? So I have to kind of numb out. I have to step back. I can't take all this in. So I start shutting down in other ways. Is that fair to say that kind of shutdown happens at a number of different levels?
Yeah, well, it happens because also you keep seeing people around you succumbing to that level of stress. Your body picks up subconsciously those signals, and that compounds your personal physical state, which means that you're drowning. It's almost like in the quicksand. You're standing in the quicksand with all your peers. Everybody's drowning, everybody's freaking out, and you basically pick up their distress calls. And your body is overwhelmed by that level of distress, and there's nothing you can do. You cannot shut it off. Okay? So that's why that level of cortisol is beyond your reach. You cannot do anything about it. You also become aware that people around you are losing it and that somebody needs to step in to support the team performance. And you realize it could be you, and it's all on you. And that realization is just too much to handle. It's because, a lot of people, not everybody has enough resilience. So therefore, if you have peers around you and they're not performing, then it's on you. And that's really bad.
It seems that what people are trying to do with that is increase these strategies that in a certain way, they add more, they don't subtract. And I think we talked about how recovering is more about deletion, not addition, right? You have to find a way to rest in something else in yourself that is able to see it clearly. And we complain about the environment that we're in, and we're trying to change the environment, which is, the old proverbial moving the chairs around on the Titanic, trying to keep from sinking. That's what we're doing. We're with all these burnout solutions that are out there. We're simply moving the chairs around the Titanic, not hoping the boat won't sink. In the meantime, executives are dropping off like flies. 2,200 CEOs left their seats last year, record breaking. 70% of executives report feeling the edges of this. It's mind numbing when you think about it. So I want to say, folks, it's not the environment. It's the one that's meeting the environment, right? We talk about examples of Navy SEALs or professional athletes who operate under tremendous pressure that don't melt. They're not in this constant survival mode. They're in a different mode. So not necessarily using those as an example, what do we have to do to resolve ourselves to meet the day, to step into higher operating functionality of true leadership, genuine, authentic leadership, and to be able to stop and say, folks, this is crazy what we're doing. Stop doing that. Let's do this. That's more effective. What do we have to do to get back to that level of meeting the day rather than waiting for someday this craziness will end? We know that's not going to happen. We're in the midst of a major transition in our species right now. That's the way I would say it. So what do we have to deal with within ourselves to resolve this?
Again, the idea is that our body can respond to certain external stimuli in a way it can upgrade its performance. So I'll just give an example. If you look at the sound bath concept of singing Tibetan bowls and like how it's working and affecting your nervous system to calm it down and all that, it has been widely researched. It does work. The trouble with that is it works on a bit of a lower level. It's not enough to rewire our system. So therefore, the sound, as the sound entrainment, is something that could be used to bolster our parasympathetic system and also help us redirect levels of cortisol in such a way so we become inoculated from the level of stress that we normally experience at work. So, which means that you have to trust your physical body to do all the work for you because you cannot will it to work for you at a level you want it. But if it responds to a certain stimuli outside of your body to put it in a prime condition to handle that stress, we are dealing with a very interesting phenomenon. It's all about redirecting, just like with trauma. Certain places, neural imprints we have from trauma, you just redirect it around the trauma you have, and basically the connectivity that you used to have to that trauma is gone. Same goes for levels of cortisol. You have no control over your external environment, so your body just keeps responding. But to put your physical body in a situation when your body redistributes cortisol as a level of stress in such a way that you glide over stress. You never get to a breaking point because your body handles that for you.
I want to slow down here a little bit. You said a lot in that, so I want to unpack this a little bit. At the core of what you're saying is we can't will ourselves way out of burnout. We can't think of strategies or use the thinking intellect to think our way into more resiliency and the ability to meet the day. There's something in the physical experience that if we create the right conditions, knows how to resolve that. And this is crazy making for smart executives. Come on, singing bowls or whatever. We'll get to the singing bowls in a second, but there's wisdom in the body, right? And there are conditions you can set up for where the body can resolve this, but you have to take that step to do that, right? You have to create space for that, create opportunities for that, engage those modalities. And you're saying that sound itself can be one of those modalities, sound baths, singing bowls. Now, this is going to stretch a lot of our listeners, right? Because, come on, I do my mindfulness app. I listen to binaural beats. I've got those contraptions you talk about on my head. Why would I take that off or I leave that? It doesn't sustain. But I guess it's better to do some of that than not, right? What you're saying is at least that gives your body a break and opens the door for maybe you getting out of the state of constant survival. So just unpack that a little bit for me. We can't think our way out. We can't willpower our way out. We get that. That's already a stretch for really sharp executives that pretty much have gotten through by thinking their way through. They're super smart and they have some level of connection to their gut. That's gotten them through, but that's not getting them through anymore. They've got to try a different avenue to meet the day. And secondly, there's something about sound and these sound baths. So can you unpack that just a little bit more?
Let's start with the fact that executives want a quick fix. They don't have patience. Even if they use like those apps and they do a lot of mindfulness and meditation, it does provide some level of support throughout the day. But that's on a level which is, not part of the bodily function to deal with the level of stress that slips in subconsciously. So you're not even aware of that, but you're reading into all those signals. And there's a law of universe that talks about the redistribution. We never get lucky. We always get things distributed for us. And it works on the physical body level as well. So if you trust your body to do that redistribution of stress for you, among other things, that's the only way how you can stay in a good functioning condition. What are the other ways? Well, if you think about people talking, floating in the tank or doing retreats, all that stuff, the second question that executives ask, how long is that going to last for me? So if I take some time off and I go elsewhere and do my retreat for 2 weeks, how much time do I buy for myself to stay in my job? Because that's what I am wrestling with. Now, this is the second question. So quick fix and how long it's going to last. And this is something that we have here is we're talking about something that's close to permanence. It's a long lasting effect. And even though people may think like, oh, I'm taking this for granted, I don't know if it's working anymore. Because people get adjusted, their body gets adjusted to the fact that the stress doesn't get to them. They don't know what's going on, but they take it for granted. But it doesn't mean that you got used to that it's gone, and you just riding this this in this situation when you think like my mental capacity is still taking me forward when my physical inoculation against stress is gone. So this is where it gets really interesting because explaining this to business executives in these dire times becomes difficult because they're so much under pressure. They don't trust anything. No snake oil, nothing. They kind of look at you as like, look, I know I'm drowning. I know I'm going down, and there's nothing I can do about it. So I'll just keep my chin up, and that's as much as I can do.
Yeah. I think you're speaking to a couple things there that, again, I want to unpack a little bit. But let's go back to what I hear you say to make sure I understand it. The taking care of this beyond your thinking and willpower, which is it requires. It's thinking and willpower don't work to solve this issue. What you have to do is attend to the physical body, which of course includes the head, but it's mostly below the neck where everything happens. And to care for that, one way you can do that is by engaging sound to do that because the body responds to that. We can see that. I saw a video the other day of a kid that was just learning to walk, and he took his first couple steps and there was this song playing in the background. And the kid started dancing. So he was his first dance. And he was grooving with the music. And you see this, that we respond to sound. What do we do at the end of a long day? We put on our favorite song. It could be whatever genre it is. And you can feel the resonance of the song coming in. And it kind of is therapy for you. But when you take this to a higher level of ancient civilizations that understood the power of sound, like singing bowls and certain kinds of music, and this has been replicated through sound entrainment, like with the Monroe Institute. So we understand the power of sound, regardless of what level I just shared, whether it's your favorite rock song, or you've done some experience with singing bowls or sound baths, or you've engaged binaural beats from people like the Monroe Institute, which are very solid, well-researched ways to do that. you can resolve some of the stress from the day. You can kind of like, it is like a bath. Your body is kind of in this bath and it kind of lets go, cortisol levels drop, and you start feeling better. And then what you're saying is, at the very least, that's what you ought to be doing, right? Because that will help delay, give you some relief. And as long as you're doing that consistently, you may be able to avoid the overthrow of burnout or whatever. But that's something you can do. But what then you're also saying is, while those are effective, they're not permanent, right? There's not a permanent shift that happens in the body so it can come back into the stress and not be affected by it. But what you're intimating in what you're saying is that is possible. And I want to go back to examples. I said Navy SEALs. They go into far greater danger than any executive, right? As we talked about in a podcast, Navy SEALs die and are brought back to life so they can understand what the experience is to temporarily leaving this world. And so they might be in a situation where they're going to have to be resuscitated or whatever. There's a way of which they're trained to reduce the chances of them getting shot or killed, right? They have an ability to be under tremendous stress and not be affected by it because of their training. Is that fair to say?
Fortunately, the Navy SEAL training doesn't work in the corporate environment, because I've seen some people try to incorporate that and it didn't really take off, simply because the corporate environment is very different from life-endangering situations for Navy SEALs when they're out on the mission. This is all physical environment. The level of stress is different. The nature of stress is different. And then you're working with your closely coherent team. So that gives you a level of support that you feel as being part of that team. Now, in the corporate environment, you're always on your own. Your team around you, they are not really, the ones to support you in that situation, because the environment is different. So that means that you have to work with a level of stress which is very different from the physical stress they experience and endure on missions.
Yeah, what you're saying is, I get it. The main point I've said is there are examples of where the body can be trained up to deal with the stress. So it isn't necessarily the stress coming at us. We can complain about the environment, but there is a way in which you can meet the environment. And Navy SEAL is just an example of that. The other thing I think you said, which is very poignant, is the coherent team, the way that you operate and are supported in that operation. They're not like just thrown out there. They got people waiting for them when they return. They're taken care of. Their bodies are taken care of. They've got a team that's trained up to that level. So there is a coherent, almost energy around that team. And if you now bring it back to executives, clearly that's showing some places we could work on, and organizational design and team development and all that. We're leaving that to the side today. But what you are saying is that they're, as an executive, unlike with a Navy SEAL team, they are on their own to deal with this. So I appreciate you bringing that point home. But what we want to say here is it is possible to meet the day, and that the resolution for burnout, other than you taking these short-term sound baths or using binaural beats, there is a way to permanently shift. So what I want to ask before we go into talking about what that shift is what is shifting in the human being? I just, recently did that blog post where basically what we know is executives are very seasoned, wise, and smart, and they've developed some ability to trust their gut over time. But what have they missed in their development? Other aspects, which you're pointing to, is the physical experience, which is more subconscious or unconscious to us. What have they missed in their development that when we got through the doorway of 2020, we weren't ready for what happened? What happened is we didn't train something, and it's not executives' fault. They didn't think this was going to happen. So it really isn't their fault. They've done nothing wrong. And I think sometimes executives feel like I must be doing something wrong not to be able to keep up with this. That whole thing. That's BS. They didn't do anything wrong, but there was something that was left on the curbside that could have been developed prior to this. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Let's go back to what Ryan was talking about 95% of all our subconscious functions are performed by our subconscious mind. So technically, we are looking into a number of functions that do not bend to our will at all. You mentioned something about the intuitive levels of executives, and we did talk about that a great majority of them trust their decisions up to 50% based on their intuition, how they feel about it. So they do operate a little bit from that perspective. But anything that happens on the subconscious level is outside of their reach. By making it instrumental for them, this is the only way to shore up their defenses in the face of the uncertainty they are experiencing on a daily basis. But they don't have control over it. So we're talking about this volume of subconscious bodily functions that we cannot really master unless we outsource the decision for that elsewhere and say, okay, there's nothing I can do about myself being this way. I'm very smart, but this is where the buck stops. I know I'm smart, I know I'm this and that and that. Now, but my subconscious mind and anything that has to do with that, apparently I have to outsource it to somebody else to fix it up for me. That's the idea when they start thinking, okay, is it ayahuasca experience? Is it microdosing? Is it nootropics? Is it doing all sorts of crazy stuff? Not all of them think that way because they're afraid that this could affect their mental performance. So they sort of like say like, well, I'm not so sure. I don't want to screw up my mental performance at work because I need to give my 100% to what I'm doing. But the subconscious
my colleague card
mind, yeah. But the subconscious mind is something that they have so far overlooked. And therefore, by telling them, look, you don't have to learn anything on top of what you know. You don't have to do anything extra. It's already part of who you are. You just need to activate it. And then you will be whole again because you're smart, you're intuitive, and then you're going to make your subconscious mind work for you. Then it will be peachy. You will be in your prime performance.
What we're talking about, not to get too far out there, but is our species being called to upgrade right now? Are we, and part of that upgrade is realizing that you have to bring your subconscious mind and your nervous system up to a higher operating system, if you will. And we have the capabilities. We have limited understanding of our capabilities, I think, right? What you're saying is you can upgrade this, activate it, however you want to say it. But I think upgrade is a good thing because people understand that idea. There are frameworks and mechanisms in my body that have greater capacity to meet the day that haven't been necessary and have kind of been dormant, or the pre-2020 nervous system and the subconscious was doing a good enough job because the subconscious creates this floor and ceiling. You will never go below it in your level of success or capability. You also have a ceiling. You can't go above it because it's only allowing you, but those floors and ceilings can be raised, right? We have a capacity of a number of different abilities as human beings in our physical body that have not been engaged. Is that too far out there, or what would you say about that?
No, that's pretty much it. Let's put it in layman terms. If you look at your physical body, you exercise, you go to the gym, you eat healthily, and you think you're investing enough in your physical body to get you through your work challenges. But you never really think that, well, is there anything else to it? Is there anything else I can tap into that's going to help my performance, but maybe not performance that much, but to bring that much sought well-being to me? Because right now I'm so fried. I don't enjoy my job. I don't enjoy money that comes with a job because that money doesn't give me any kick because I'm so overworked that I cannot enjoy it. And that's a vicious circle. So therefore, the idea of the subconscious mind taking some brunt, because it's your own subconscious mind, and helping you rebalance out what you have in your life is very appealing. You are not imposing anything on a person. You just say, look, you've got that all inside of you. The only thing is, this is where a bit of a trick. The subconscious mind is tied up to our limbic system. So the limbic resonance that you experience to allow you to activate that level of your subconscious mind rests on how healthy your limbic system is. But this is a minor condition. There are no magic words. There are no affirmations that you will practice and make things work. The law of abundance and stuff like that, mumbo jumbo, it doesn't work like that. Again, we are going back to the fact that our physical body needs a bit of attention just to yield back something that we invest in it. And that's a fair game for hard-nosed professionals. If they understand how that works, they should say, okay, I don't have to learn anything. I don't have to jump through hoops. I don't have to do anything extra. This is a very, very common situation that I have to basically expose myself to the sound and then capitalize my neural gains through the coaching to make sure that anything that I have activated in myself becomes accessible to me and I understand what has happened. That's as easy as that.
Yeah. You're pointing to something one of our clients said after they went through the Resilient Leader Method. I want to start transitioning into how this helps deal with what you're saying. I don't have to learn anything. I just have to go through this process. Which, I don't know if you remember, I don't care how you explain how this works. It works. That's all I need to know. I don't need to add an understanding of the subconscious and the limbic system and all that. Because where did she know that? She was experiencing it in her body. Let's talk about this a little bit because we talked about how sound, baths, singing bowls, the binaural beats help. And there's an important aspect of your voice that brings that forward, that in those 2-hour sessions of leadership resilience reset that we do as the first step in the Resilient Leader Method is taking that and is the transmitter of that, right? It doesn't require you to learn anything, change any habits. It just requires this reset. So can you talk a little bit about what you mean by what happens when the body resets during the leadership resilience reset? What is actually going on in that process, both the initiator and activator of that, and then the result that occurs? And why is that more permanent than going to a sound bath or listening to binaural beats in the morning and the evening?
It's a very good question. Let's start with the fact that when I mention limbic resonance, it may sound Chinese to people. So let's talk about theta brainwaves. That's where a whole treasure sits. Our memory, our resilience, our capacity to perform at a much higher level. Lots of those things, they are packed and they're sitting at this level of theta waves. Well, that's basically when people go meditate, they get a glimpse of that. Now, but the idea is that you cannot really resonate until you go into the resonance state. When you go into the resonance state with me, then what happens is your body learns to operate. It's like, I feel that if I adopt that level of functioning through the so-called interbrain neural coupling, that's going to really bring me the level of performance, the level of joy and happiness that I'm seeking. So your body makes that decision for you. But there's no magic there. Technically, we are talking about theta waves and delivery mechanism, which is the interbrain neural synchrony, and then the body activates itself on a subconscious level to reproduce and replicate that level of functioning, because the body does know that. It has never done that before from the being prodded by something outside. But when the body reconnects with that, it goes like, oh, I like that. That's very natural. This is a state that helps me stay in a much better position with regards to what I'm doing, and as if the body itself makes that decision. When you said that what makes it permanent, the idea was more about the long-term potentiation effect that comes with it. To be honest, it's a shift in consciousness that people experience. They upgrade and move up on a consciousness level, which allows them to grab and make those changes permanent. And there are lots of theories out there, but the theory that covers that is the Hammer of Penrose consciousness theory, specifically spells it out how it works, even though it's not the mainstream science theory. But that theory, I think, is the closest to what we have. And that's what makes it now, as opposed to sound baths, binaural beats, and other things. That's what makes it permanent for a person, because your body shifts into a different mode. And your body doesn't want to go back to the old mode because it likes the new mode so much. This is the beauty of it. You don't force anything on your physical body. It likes it by itself.
Right. The idea is that the body has intelligence. A lot of times we don't understand that. The brain runs a lot, right? But the body has an intelligence in it, and the brain also likes this too. There's a part of when you get in that coherent state. Let's say when during the beginning part of the session, when there's that coherence that happens in your theta state, and that actually activates or brings forward the others theta state, because it's a coherent state and it's a more enjoyable state to be in. And we've been facing a lot of pressure in this world. So you have a conversation with Anatoly and it goes, this is like a sound bath. I like this place and I'm gonna line here because it makes me feel better. Not only that, it's opening up something else in me as the process goes on in these 2 hours that allows me to activate a self-healing in me. Nothing's being done to me. I'm not being hypnotized. I'm not going through an NLP process with Tony Robbins where he's tricking my mind into thinking something new. I'm really aligning with that same coherent theta brainwave state with Anatoly. And then that's activating something in me that is a self-healing mechanism. And then we ask them, and it's also opening the door to that subconscious portal. So you can speak directly into that. And that's why we have them get very clear what they want to let go of. Like, I want to stop this reactivity when this happens, or I want to get rid of this trauma. I want to let this go. I want to put this to bed and resolve it. And then we also have them create a joy list or a leaning into list. Like, this is what I want to create in my physical experience and how I meet stress and how I deal with difficult people, whatever it is, and also manifest things. I want to take my leadership to the next level. I want to produce this for my business. I want to bring this into my relationships more. And the reason we do that is because that portal is open. You have great influence during this session over shifting your entire subconscious mechanism to align with your own aspirations and desires, how you want to be in life.
That's a very good summary. The beauty of it is people come up themselves with what they want to let go of and with the joy list. I'm not dictating it to them. I'm not telling them what to do. So this is the beauty of it, because it comes from them, and they are in charge of the entire process. That must be very appealing to executives who don't want to be jerked around by somebody who is playing with their mind and telling them stuff. The only thing I say is that anything you bring to the table comes from you. I'm not changing anything. I'm not doing anything. This is your call. And you're doing that yourself. And what I'm doing is basically follow up with a risk statement, which is a very well-known therapeutic tool. So I basically restate what you say, and that happens because we are already in that level of resonance that will allow your subconscious mind to make adjustments right there, right now, and you are fully in control of the process.
Yeah. And that's why there is some requirement of preparation. So, and we have seen getting ready for that, especially second session with you. You're going to have to take a couple hours maybe and really dig, because this is your this is your one chance. So you can do it in 5 minutes if you want to, but we found the people that spend the time and really get in touch with, like, let me be completely honest with myself. How could I be a better human being? What did I miss when I was a kid that has created kind of ways of operating that aren't serving me? Things like that. You don't have to necessarily reveal all that or any of that in the session with you. You have to do your own reconnaissance. There's probably a diminishing return, but spending more time than not getting ready for that is a good idea, because you want to be in touch with the emotionality of those experiences you're wanting to let go of. Like, what does it really cost you? What does it do when it activates that you don't like? What unresolved anger do you have about that happened in the first place? Getting in touch with those things is helpful. And I don't want to, but I think it's important to say that, because because you're preparing to kind of do this heavy lifting with Anatoly, but you're stepping into a resonance in yourself that can activate a healing. You're able to release that fully and get to see what life is like without having those brakes on or that pressure on you that is all in your subconscious, which goes back to what we're talking about around burnout and those things that also get activated under high stress that are keeping you down, old traumas, paper cuts, etc. So we originally created this because we saw it as a great executive performance enhancer, and it was for the early clients we did this with, starting pre-2020 going into 2020, right? The first clients that went through the process, well, it wasn't the first time you did the process, but we've kind of developed a method around it. And then when we started deploying that method, we saw great performance boosts, like higher energy, increased sense of sovereignty and confidence, clarity. And one of the most amazing outcomes was, I'm just here right now. Not that I can't think about the future or envision the future or process what happened in the past, but I'm really present. And that's enabling me to see the lay of the land clearly, make better, quicker decisions, and get my team together to have a different kind of conversation. And we saw a number of outer benefits with increased promotions and all that kind of stuff. So it is more than a boost. It's a performance transformation, I would say, at a level that you can't understand until you go through the process. That said, as burnout began to rise, we began to notice that our executives that have been through this process, it wasn't that they weren't facing, you're still human, you're still facing the pressure, but there was a resiliency we saw in our clients. And we began to realize this was also a cure for what ails us with burnout. So talk to me a little bit about how this bolsters you. It goes back maybe to the Navy SEAL metaphor. How does this bolster you in the face of this unrelenting chaos that we're seeming to be dancing in every day? And you mentioned earlier, you're feeling all this stuff from other people around you, and that's adding and layering on to your deepening experience and rise of your cortisol levels. So how does this shift allow you to have kind of a bubble of resilience around you? That's the best way I could describe it right now. How does it help with that?
Going back to the idea of our subconscious mind taking over those functions to deal with burnout and resilience at the same time makes it super efficient for anybody to operate when they don't have to step into the leading role for their own body. They just know that, okay, I've been freed up from all the extra stress that I have been dealing with. And now my cortisol level is low and my decision-making power is fully functional because my prefrontal cortex is handling things for me. So for people, that's why we have this a bit of a shift of focus from resilience to burnout, because it's more pronounced. And people, because nobody has found a way to deal or treat burnout in a manner that would be efficient and quick so far. So people who are understanding that they are in a position and they are in certain roles, they can only trust their physical body, they can only trust their subconscious mind. Once they embrace that idea, once they understand that this is something that carries them forward, that will be a profound change in this area of bio upgrade of people and helping them deal with those issues. Right now, we are just shopping around for the right language that would appeal to business people. Because business people, they just say it as it is, keep it simple. I will be deciding if that works for me or not. So that's probably one of the challenges for us. You cannot really simplify it down to very number of.
We're talking about something really profound here. The shift is profound. The shift in understanding about what are truly the performance boosters in us that we have, that in a certain way you could say these times when they're in the rearview mirror have ignited. They're asking more from us. That is already there and embedded in our systems. And it's forcing us to kind of upgrade to meet the day. And RELM is one of the ways in which they can do that with ease. And you're absolutely right. The challenge we face is the noise out there and a lot of what's written on the misunderstandings around not that they're all misunderstandings. There's good things to do. You still have to lift weights to have big muscles. You still have to study to understand an area of expertise. That's still true. But we've overemphasized that brute force and that intellectual side of things. And what we're saying is, no, you've left something on the table that's huge, that allows you to hold all that up and be stronger and even smarter, more cognitively clear and effective and innovative. And you carried your body behind you to get through the day. And that was where we lost ourselves. And so you're right. The noise out there is still speaking into that. The latest publication from this fancy consultancy out there on Dazed and Confused. And the conclusion was, it's the same. Burnout is costing you. You're making bad decisions. It's affecting you this way. You got to change your temperament. And it leaves it there. It starts pointing in this direction, but those fancy consultancies don't have any capacity to do anything about that. And all that's out there, and we're talking into that noise. And it's frustrating to me too, because we've got the answer like that. You just have to come talk to us. Done. I promise. And those are the weights that we have to lift, right? As I said many times on this show, I've been on a trek my whole career, knowing there was a taste in my mouth that Anatoly existed somewhere, or the answer existed somewhere. And I kind of took some strange curves to find it. And here we are. So I'm very grateful. Well, as we close out the show today, is there any final words you want to say as we complete today's show?
Yes, I would like to quote a couple of people who confided to you before and said, like, well, I look at my job, I can do it with my eyes closed, without realizing that this is the realm that they have gone through,
Yeah.
gave them a new perspective. Oh, my job has become so easy. It's not really rocket science. So I really like the fact you brought up those two quotes, from those people to me, because
Yeah.
now we see that this is a way how those executives see their own jobs. It's really easy. It's not hard for me to do what I do. So this is a way of appreciating indirectly the realm they've gone through.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, again, I really want to reinforce that there is an ease that happens for people after they do this process. They meet life without the same resistance. And I've done the process and I have my ups and downs. That still happens. You're still human. But there's something about the ups and downs that go together to strengthen and now put more wind behind my sails. I don't collapse in the downs. Do I really want to have an up day? Absolutely. That's a preference. But I don't look at the downs anymore as a problem. I look at it as something's telling me something, right? And it's giving me information I need to pay attention to. And maybe I'm pushing too hard, or maybe I'm not attending to a certain aspect of my wellness, but it's not like I'm fixated on all that stuff anymore. So there is a greater ease and ability to meet the day at a higher, whole another level. So I appreciate you saying that and everything, and for you being here today. Thank you for joining me. I want to say to the audience, if you made it to this point in the conversation, maybe you already know something in you is done with surface level solutions. Maybe you're ready for something different. You're ready to return to a way of leading, living, and creating that's grounded in wholeness. Wholeness is not a weird word. We were meant to be whole. We are a complete package, right? So you're not alone, and more leaders are waking up, looking for a real path forward, a real community to walk with that allows them to thrive again, to find meaning again, to find energy and reconnect to their confidence. And that's what RELM does. It's a sacred reset, I would say, a way back to a natural authority, a reconnection to the kind of power that doesn't burn you out. It builds you up. If you want to learn more, reach out. We'll connect you to stories, conversations, next steps. This work is not for everyone, but if you know it's for you, you'll feel it in your gut if something resonated. Finally, I'm going to say you were born to lead during these times. The way back is to fully embrace that. And the key to embrace that is realizing nothing outside of you will activate the state necessary to lead during these times. You have to reclaim it, and it's waiting there inside of you right now. I guarantee it. In the meantime, trust your instincts, be bold, pave a new way forward. This is David Craig, the Leadership Alchemist, signing off. Have a great rest of your day.